WSBT.
Good morning, everybody. Dave Schmidt along with Matt Nestor and producer Tom Warner. Hard to believe, guys, but the first week is under our belt already. We learned a few things.
I think we learned a few things, but I think there's a lot more we got left to learn. More so than a lot of years, I feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions coming out of week one. There's a lot of interesting results, and I think a lot still to be determined for sure.
And the one team, if you're a NUIC fan, is keep an eye on Galena, because that's all I hear about. And last night, they were up like 40-0 at halftime, and they beat South Beloit 49-6.
I tell you what, I think they're ranked number one, but number two is Lena Winslow. And I know, I was at that game last night. I know EPC is down. They're certainly not the team that won the state title last year. So it's hard to take too much from that game. But, I also last year I saw Forston and EPC play each other in some of the playoff games. And, I think that Lena team could have competed with the Lena team this year could compete with those teams last year. They got size on the line, very, very strong. They got a couple running backs. They got a senior in Brendan Ilders, who really got them off to a good start last night, had a couple touchdowns. And then they got a sophomore to keep an eye on, Ravion Valentine, who's really, really fast. He's got decent size. He's not big yet, but he's also a sophomore. But he's got decent size, and he's got a lot of speed, really hits the outside well. And I think that's a team that really is going to have to be reckoned with this year. When they play Galena later in the season, that's going to be a game to watch.
Yeah, I know that a couple of teams want Galena, so here you go, boys.
Yeah, good luck with it.
Yeah, so it should be. That's the last time Galena and South Beloit will probably play each other, because South Beloit's going to the Northeastern Athletic Conference next year. So good way to say goodbye. We'll see you later. Hey, next week in the Nick 10, a couple of games of interest. Probably the one that a lot of people will want to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Can Auburn finally get a win over Boylan, since Dan Apino's been over there? It's his fourth year trying, and after seeing Auburn last night, Boylan better be ready, because it's going to be a good game.
I tell you, I think a lot of people are going to expect Auburn to come in there and just roll over Boylan. It'll be interesting to see. I don't think you can discount number one, Boylan. You just can't. I know they lost week one, but that's a program that I think is well established, that you can't just right off at any point. Number two, I don't think you can discount the emotion of that game. And that's not just for Apino going back to play Boylan, but I'm sure Boylan on their side, wants to get Apino because he left still, even 4 years later, so I don't think you can discount that. And the fact that, if we could talk to Tom Kirschbaum, I'm sure he would tell us, I don't know how long it's been since Auburn has beaten Boylan.
I looked, it's like in the 90s sometime.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And you can't discount those kind of things, especially if it's a close game and you're up late, you start getting tight in those. That's how Boylan, was able to keep their streak as long as it was. There's a couple times where they were down late in games, and you could see that the team that was up get tight. They'd make a turnover, they'd give up
Harlem,
a big play. Hananiga too, though. We saw that with Belvedere North had that happen to them. Where they had Boylan on a 4th and 10,
couple times,
and gave up big plays. On that final drive. So you can't discount those kind of things. I think from a talent standpoint, we've said Auburn's one of the co-favorites, if not the favorite this year. So I think from a talent standpoint, you got to say that Auburn is likely going to win, but in those kind of games, they think it's about more than talent.
Go to StatelineSportsHub.com. Check out the story that I did, thanks to Tom Kirschbaum's stats, about Auburn and their run. They actually had won like their first or second year as a football team, the Nick 10 or Nick 9 at that time, but they got it all turned over because they had to forfeit all the games because of an ineligible player. They have never won the Nick 10.
Right.
So this could be the year. So it's one of those years. No pressure on Coach Apino,
exactly.
Who, because of that, is also the second all-time winningest coach at Auburn in just his fourth year. So that tells you how they've struggled over the years.
What the program's been like. Yeah,
and it was a nice crowd last night, so that'll be a good game. Yeah. Also, the Battle of Belvedere. We rotated schedule this week. We pushed that down a week. That'll be a good one. Belvedere North.
And I think that's a game that's going to tell you a lot about both teams. I don't know how much you know about North coming off of beating Jefferson, and honestly, I don't know how much we know about Belvedere and Boylan after a 1-point game like that. I think, obviously intensity will be high for that game. I think that could be a very good game. Be interesting to see what comes out of that one.
And Freeport at Harlem. Freeport gave a Hananiga game last night. Harlem had a big lead and then let it slip away. So it could be a good matchup.
I think another game that you can find out a lot about both teams. Can Freeport keep that momentum, get, maybe score some points this week, keep playing defense? And can Harlem bounce? But, again, because you're not at the games, did Harlem make mistakes that maybe they can correct that can turn a 39-29 game into a 48-10 game?
That could happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very intriguing game too.
East will be at Hononegah. Hononegah with the situation, 2 interim head coaches. I saw East last night. They're probably the best team I've seen in a long time that lost 41-0. They've got a lot of potential. Hononegah cannot take them for granted. And they've got 2 players that didn't play last night,
Right.
2 of their key players.
And I think that's a perfect game for Hononegah because they can't. They can't overlook East or anything like that, regardless of a 41-0 loss for East. I think they know that. I think they'll be prepared to play. And I think that's what the conference brings you this year is even in those kind of games, you got to be prepared. And I think it's a perfect game where, Hononegah can maybe pick up a win and maybe correct some things, but they'll have to be focused going in. They can't just go in there expecting a win.
I can't imagine what they're going through over there.
Yeah.
I talked to Dr. Lynn Gibson a week or so ago about it. And she's very positive. They're working together, and I think it's a good thing that they've situated what they need to do and stuff. But that's got to be a tough time for that whole community. And then finally, Rockford City Challenge game. Jefferson is at Guilford. Coach DeBose had a tough first game against a pretty good Belvedere North program, and Guilford did not give up and came back and almost got Harlem in that game. And Harlem, one of the co-Nick 10 favorites. Yeah. So it should be a good matchup.
Yeah, and I think you find out a lot about both of those teams there, too. I guess, we see how good was Belvedere North that Jefferson played. Is it more playing a great team than it was, Jefferson being down? And same with Guilford, if they can play with that kind of intensity, that could be another rough night for Jefferson.
And the big game in Rockford, I suppose it's a big game.
I don't know if it's a big game.
Rockford Christian and Rockford Lutheran will play it. It's a crossover game because East is in the north. Excuse me, Christian is in the east, but that'll be interesting to see how that one comes out.
Yeah. Expect another big night for James Robinson.
Yeah, I think it's a Christian, isn't it?
I think it's at Lutheran.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they still got to change some of those games. I'm sorry, because I think that there's going to be humongous crowds. It looked like there was a big crowd at Quincy Notre Dame, but Lutheran and Christian next week, and we'll see what James Robinson can do in that, and if they can even stop him at all. So
Christian Life has Mooseheart at home next week.
Yeah,
so I think that'll be an interesting game in that conference. I know one of the big games around the state line area will be Galena and Forreston. Forreston defending state champion. They got off to a good start last night, picking up a win. And Galena, a lot of people are looking at, as a potential favorite in 1A. So I think that's a big game right there. Dakota and South Beloit will play. It'll be an interesting night for South Beloit. Pecatonica has Lena Winslow.
Oh, good luck there.
Could be an interesting night for Pecatonica. Winnebago has Harvard, Stillman Valley, Richmond Burton. So that's some of the other games you got around the state.
And I'll tell you what, good football in the state line.
Yeah,
this
it
year.
is. There's a lot of good teams in this area this year. Yeah, I think that's the one thing you get out of week one. There's a lot of good teams around here this year.
If you have a chance, get out and see a high school football game.
I'll
and if
do
you
it.
have a chance, you never saw James Robinson and you don't believe he can play.
Worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
And if you're at Lutheran, get a pork chop sandwich here. They got good ones.
They got one good one, too?
Yeah.
I know you have the fighting over there. Belvedere has a good one.
Yeah.
Hononegah. And if they want us to test them out for free, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Always happy to do
because we're
that.
radio guys.
That's right. And we'll talk about it on the air.
That's going to wrap it up. We sure will. Our buddy Johnny Lee over at Harlow.
Yeah.
We're going to say goodbye. We will see you again next week here on the State Line Sports Hour. For Tom Warner, Matt Nesser, this is Dave Schmidt saying, have a good football weekend. Bye, everybody.